It's Thursday, January 9th, the day before the SJHL trade deadline, and we are back with another episode of SJHL Insider. I'm Clark Munroe. We're here in the IKS Media Studios, coming at you with a lot to talk about this week. 5 games already this week, and again, like I mentioned, the SJHL/CJHL trade deadline is tomorrow night. I believe it's 5 p.m. Saskatchewan time that it ends. The clock rings, the bell tolls. No more trades. Put your pencils down. So we'll get into that a little bit today. Plus, we're going to be joined by voice of the Melfort Mustangs and backup voice of the Battleford's North Stars, apparently. Ben Tompkins is going to be joining us to talk about the Melfort Mustang streak ending and where do they go from here. And, of course, with the trade deadline, how do the Melfort Mustangs approach the trade deadline? We'll talk to Ben about that coming up a little bit later in the show. But first, we got to thank our sponsors, of course, of this program, of all of our broadcasts, and of all of our league entirely. Cantera Seeds, Borgo, Capital Auto Mall, Sask Lotteries, Chevrolet, Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association, Nutrien, Tourism Saskatchewan, Sask Energy, UPL. UPL is the sponsor of all of our broadcasts, actually, so thank you to UPL. SGEU, Great Western, SGI, who is our podcast sponsor. Shout out to SGI, and RBC. So thank you to all of our sponsors. And let's bring in the man, the myth, the legend, Jamie Neugebauer, voice of the Notre Dame Hounds, the most winning team in the SJHL in 2025, or best winning percentage, I guess, is the right way to say it. Jamie, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Walked into my door at just past 4 in the morning.
Oh, I love that.
Last night from the bus. Bus took me to Wilcox where my car was, and then middle of the night drove from Wilcox to Regina. But here I am thanks to an unnamed coffee making company.
Caffeine. Love caffeine.
Yep, brought to you by caffeine.
Yes. And you know a funny story, I was awoken by my 6-year-old daughter at 5:30 in the morning. I was on the couch. I fell asleep on the couch. Didn't even think of it. Just kind of fell asleep on the couch last night watching some videos on the TV. And she woke me up at 5:30 and said, "Dad, is it time to wake up yet?" And I was like, I don't even know what time it is, to be honest. So I looked at my phone. Nope. So back to bed we went. But anyways.
What a blessing.
It was a funny little morning, I think, for everybody. So, Jamie, you know what we usually do about this time of the show. We like to get into the Prairie Proud hat trick. Oh, I surprised the guys in the back. They weren't ready for it. They weren't ready for it. Now, I've been informed by our good friend Jacob Faith, Director of Marketing of the SJHL, that this is the final episode of SJHL Insider that we won't have Prairie Proud gear to either wear or put on the desk. Apparently, it's on the way. Jacob's picking it up, I guess, this weekend, and we will have access to it for this show as of next week. That's what I've been told. So, Prairie Proud, awesome Saskatchewan company, clothing company. We're going to get some hats, apparently. I think some quarter zips, possibly. Some shirts, possibly. I'm not entirely sure. Don't make any promises. But we have some stuff, and I think we're going to be giving away stuff as well. So stay tuned for that. Prairie Proud. Love those guys. I'm proud of the topics that we're about to talk about because I think it's going to be a fun little show. Topic 1, of course, Nugsy, as we always do, we have to recap the action from the earlier part of the week. There was two games, yes, on Tuesday, 3 games on Wednesday. So here we are. Notre Dame snuck out a 3-2 overtime victory against the Kindersley Clippers, and that was a shootout. Shootout. And Battlefords ended the streak, 3-1 win over the Melfort Mustangs. Melfort's streak is over at 17 games. They couldn't quite get that decade record broken. They weren't anywhere close to the actual record, which is, 31? 30 by the Prince Albert Raiders back in 1981, 1982. So they weren't close to that. But the decade record, one more win, they would have done it, and they couldn't pull it out.
The Millennium record.
The Millennium record. Right, not the decade, the Millennium.
Yeah. So they did have the decade record.
Right, they had the decade, didn't have the Millennium. Yeah. Sorry, can we put Wednesday back up? Sorry, Rolf, I talked about a different thing there and then got sidetracked. Weyburn, big 7-4 win over Yorkton. That was actually a really big game. It actually put Weyburn within 1 point of Yorkton in the standings. Yorkton had a chance to move into second with a win in that one, but they're staying in third at this moment. Flin Flon with a 9-2 victory over the Nipawin Hawks. My goodness, that was a close game for 20 minutes. And then wasn't so much after that. And then Notre Dame, again, with a big win, 5-3 against the Battleford's North Stars. So let's get into it now. We'll start with Tuesday night. And we'll start with your Notre Dame Hounds, Nugsy. 3-2 shootout victory over Kindersley. Zach Anderson opened the scoring with his 16th this season, but Notre Dame answered back with goals from Damian Metastasio and Ripley Garden to go up 2-1 until early in the third when Dawson Carroll scored his 17th of the season to tie it and eventually push it to overtime, which eventually got pushed to a shootout where Marko Djordjevic scored the lone goal for the Hounds' win. Spencer Borsos, 38 saves in the win, while Brett O'Halloran had 41 in the loss. So, Nugsy, can you break down this one for us?
Yeah, it was a very good structured performance by the Notre Dame Hounds. I was very impressed with the way that they came out. This was their first game, remember, of the new year. So
yes,
I wasn't sure, whether they would have rust or what the habits would be. I think they did a great job, kept the Clippers to the outside. The Clippers did have 62% of the puck in even strength possession. So that's, the Clippers had the puck. But were they, dangerous that often with their 40 shots? Not really. So I was really impressed with the structure in the D zone of the Hounds. And, I always talk about when you go on the road in this league, you need to check 2 boxes. And if you don't check these 2 boxes, then you are usually not going to win the hockey game. And one is goaltending. Always. And Spencer Borsos continues to be an elite top 4 goalie in this league. And
it's almost like a free space on a bingo card every night for Notre Dame. It's like good performance from Spencer Borsos. Check. 100%. Auto space.
I don't know, but people are big on numbers, and fair enough. But I don't know if he'll be in contention for the showcase or not because of the team performances in front of him, maybe. But to me, he is a top 4 goalie in this league, and maybe even better than that. Like, he's been incredible on and off the ice and continues to be. And then the Hounds kind of played prevent defense in overtime. It was very boring overtime, maybe the most boring overtime I've ever called in my career. And then a beautiful shootout winner by Marko Djordjevic, who continues another great year and had a great first 2 games as well. So, hey, I think probably Clayton Jardine not thrilled with the response he saw from the Clippers after their big win against Humboldt on the weekend. They were a little bit flatter. Hounds played a very good road game, and I think Brett Pilkington probably very impressed and very encouraged by what he saw on Tuesday with the Hounds team.
Yeah, you got to love it. And, like I said to you just before we started the show, Nugsy, all of a sudden, Notre Dame is within double digits now of the playoffs. 9 points back of Humboldt. I say that sort of tongue-in-cheek, but at the same time, anything can happen. There's lots of time left. And, if they get a few points here, a few points there, who knows? And it's a good start to 2025, so that never hurts your feelings.
And one more thing.
Yeah.
I said 2 boxes you need to check. One was goaltending and one was special teams. Hounds went 2 for 2 on the power play.
I mean, bam.
Can't do better than that.
Bingo, bango, and as they say, bongo.
Yeah, just greasy ones. But
this was the big one, though. Of course, this game was the one that kind of shook the waves, started some waves, ripple effects, however you want to say it, because the Battleford's North Stars ended the streak of the Melfort Mustangs. I texted our good friend Jeremy Corrigan, shout out to Jeremy, yesterday, I guess, about Battleford's ending the streak, and he said Battleford's is Brock Lesnar and Melfort was The Undertaker because Brock Lesnar ended The Undertaker's WrestleMania streak. Battleford's ended the streak as the Melfort Mustangs fell to the North Stars. It was a 1-1 game after 1, and then a battle through the second, but Braden Nienaber and Seth Dragon sealed the deal in the third period to push the North Stars to a huge 3-1 win. Again, for the North Stars, that got them up to 41 points, which at the time was right. I think it was above Weyburn. They actually moved above Weyburn with that win. Weyburn has since moved back. They're jostling back and forth right now. But Battleford's is now in 5th place with 41 points after the win. Christian Coombs only had to make 18 saves in the loss. Justin Merrick, 41 saves in the win. So a huge night for him. Christian Coombs, shout out to him, SJHL first star of the month for December. So awesome news there. He continues to put up great numbers, but Nugsy, what I've noticed as of late is that, yes, he's putting up great numbers. He's not that busy most nights. And, we got a little bit of flack, and you know who you are if you tweeted at us that Christian Coombs maybe should have won Goalie of the Week last week because he had 2 shutouts. Yes, absolutely. He made 35 saves in 2 games last week. against Melville. And I'm not saying Melville's an easy out or anything. There's nothing wrong with Melville. I'm just saying he only made 35 saves in 2 games, whereas Angelo Zoll, who won the award last week, made 56, I think it was, in 2 games. Had a shutout as well and only let up 2 goals against a very powerful Yorkton team. So there's some inside behind-the-scenes stuff for the award winners from last week, if anyone's wondering. How come Christian Coombs didn't get the award? He got 2 shutouts. There you go. That's why. Nothing wrong with the performance. 2 shutouts is great. You don't see that very often in a week, but just saying, that's why we did it, in case anyone was wondering.
Yeah.
But in terms of the game itself, Nugsy, Christian Coombs, again, 18 saves in the loss, but Battleford's it was such a battle. It was, pardon the pun, but the game itself was such a battle. 1-1 for most of it, and then kind of later in the third, they finally found the way to beat Christian Coombs. But can you talk about this game a little bit?
Yeah, look, I mean, we talk about. I think we feel, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, and if you're at home, and you can tell me I'm wrong, which is fair.
Wait until you're done talking. Okay,
yeah,
got it.
Wait. That there's kind of a big 4 in the league, right? Melfort, Flin Flon, Yorkton, Weyburn. Are they the big 4? I would say they are. Battleford's. Every time we are like, well, they're out of the top 4 there. Yeah. They come up with a result like this.
Yeah, exactly.
They stop.
They
the
beat
long
Weyburn streak too.
Right?
Yeah.
They beat Flin Flon.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
And
are they playing Flin Flon coming up here? Because their streak is. I'll look while you're talking.
But my point is that there's some big time cojones on this Battleford's team.
Yeah.
They play very hard. They play the right way. Marty Smith has them playing well. Got great leaders. Look, they are so banged up. They are so banged up right now. Jordan Grill, how far is he from coming back? I don't know. It could be a long time with Jordan Grill.
Yeah.
Which is a huge loss for Battleford's. Maybe the most mature, complete defenseman in the SJHL. There's an argument to be made for Jordan Grill. Jackson Allen is hurt. I hear he's a little closer to coming back.
Okay.
But again, they're missing him. They're missing Nikita Ivashenko.
Right.
Team Ukraine. Talk about that in a minute if you want. The list goes on.
Right now.
Well, yeah, Nikita Ivashenko. If you don't know, I posted on it on SJHL.
Yeah, really cool story.
He'll represent his native Ukraine at the Division 1B Under-20 IHF World Junior Hockey Championships in Estonia. That starts in 2 days from now. Mm-hmm. They'll compete with the likes of Poland and Estonia and Japan and South Korea and whatnot, and try to get to the Division 1As. And 1As, if you win that, you go to the World Juniors. So
yeah, it's like a soccer division series with the World Juniors. So I always wondered, this was actually years ago that I figured this out, but if you wonder why there's always like 1 or 2 new teams every single year in the World Juniors, it's because there's a relegation system. And so there's a 1B, a 1A, and then the actual tournament that we all watch, because Canada never gets relegated, thankfully. Mm-hmm. But you see the smaller countries like Italy and Japan and Kazakhstan just came up from there. And Denmark sometimes goes up and down, and Norway goes up and down, and countries like that. Right. So if you're wondering, what are the 1Bs? It's the lowest version, I guess, of the World Juniors. Not the lowest.
It goes down to like Division 3, man.
Oh, does it?
Like it goes down there, really down. Like I'm talking like Luxembourg and Israel,
right,
and the United Arab Emirates and whatever.
Right.
Like it goes way down.
It goes way down. So 1B is, I guess, the third grouping.
Yeah.
And whoever wins or gets top 2 or 3. Just the gold team goes up? Oh, wow. So it is a very tough relegation system.
Gold goes up, last place goes down.
So it's just one team goes up and down each year. So Ukraine's looking to fight their way back up into that second group, and then from there, if they were able to win that one, they go back up to the World Juniors.
And my understanding is Nikita, and if you look at the where the players on Ukraine are coming from, he probably plays at it, or not, if not one of the best levels of hockey of all those Ukrainian players. And our heart goes out to Ukraine and the war they continue to be in, and that's why Nikita's in our league, and we're happy to have him because of the compassionate nature of the situation and trying to find a place to play hockey. He was playing junior in Sweden. Could have kept doing that, I suppose, but here he is playing great, one of the best players in our league. And so the expectation is that he'll wear a letter.
Oh, nice.
And be a key player for Ukraine. So, hopefully he does good. Definitely going to pay attention. But, back to the game at hand, as I said, missing all those key guys during the course of the game as well. They lost Lincoln Fisher to a very, very big hit, and hopefully he's doing okay. They lost Owen Dick on the back end too to a big hit. Hopefully he's doing okay. But they're trying to find solutions and mix and match. And the importance of Seth Dragon and that acquisition from L'Orange is just huge. He's been red hot since coming in. He's tough. He got kicked out of the game against Notre Dame. Was kind of public enemy number one for the Hounds there. But boy, does he look good. And you know what? It shouldn't come that as big of a surprise, Clark. He was on a very good Saskatoon Contacts team that included, I don't know if you know the names, Noah Chadwick,
sure.
Leaves prospect, Berkeley Catton, I don't know if you know that name, et cetera. You
I've
go down the list. Heard of him. Morgan Tastad, who's on the Saskatoon Blades as well. So there's, he was on a very good Saskatoon Contacts AAA team, and he was a leading scorer. Not the leading scorer, because Noah Chadwick as a D-man was, but he was one of the leading scorers on that team. So, clearly getting out of L'Orange has been something that has kind of spurred Seth into new heights, and he's been really good. So, hey, you got to give Battleford's a lot of credit. Short staffed, and they found a way to break Melfort's long streak right there.
There you go. And when we say that Battleford's is just outside of the Big Four, there's a couple reasons for that. And I'm gonna kind of come to your defense on that, because I agree with you, and it's tough because, like, standings wise, Battleford's is right there with a lot of those teams. But just throughout the season, like, if you look at the goal differential is a big one for me. I always look at that just as an indicator on what kind of team are we working with here. Is it a high offense, low defense team? What is it? What kind of team are they? Battleford's has a 0 goal differential. All the other 4 that we mentioned, Melfort, Flin Flon, Yorkton, Weyburn, all very positives. Yorkton is, weirdly enough, with how many goals Yorkton scores, they have the lowest at 17 out of those 4. There's Weyburn's at 30, Flin Flon's at 40, Melfort's at 58. That means they've scored 58 more goals than they've allowed. Battleford's 122 and 122. So they're just like a weird team, and you look at their past 10 games throughout the year. If you just go to the standings and look at their past 10 as the season goes along, so often they're like 5-3-1-1 or 5-2-2-1 or something along those lines, where it's just like, yes, they're winning games, but they're only winning like 5 out of every 10 games cleanly. They have a lot of overtime games, which is fine. Teams get points that way. That's a way to get points. But at the same time, compared to those other 4, it just seems like there's something missing. Now, will they address it tonight or tomorrow at the trade deadline? We'll see if they can add something and maybe solidify the group a little bit. But they're not a bad team. And they, like you said, they come up with these huge wins out of nowhere. And
they come
crazy.
up with big wins. Justin Merrick is very much capable of putting in a huge performance on a night. And we've seen that time and time again. I did ask Marty Smith in my pregame interview the next night what Battleford's strategy heading into the trade deadline was. And he said, we're buyers. We're buyers. They're not going to go crazy, I don't think. I think they're going to be very measured buyers. They like their room. They like the leadership that Jackson Allen brings, and the other leaders that have been great. Think about, Granger and Ivashenko and Grill, etc. They don't want to rock that boat. But if they can add, some experience on the back end, I'm sure maybe a goalie behind Justin Merrick. As much as they like Connor Bombach, and I really like Connor Bombach too, but again, he seems like he has a bit of an issue staying healthy right now. So we'll see. Obviously Thomas Samborski the next night stepped in, and he hadn't played a game in over a month.
We'll talk about that.
We'll see about that. But they'll be looking for some solutions, I'm sure, but I don't think they're going to go nuts either.
And Battleford's is one of 2 current playoff teams that have open 20-year-old spots. I think they're the only 2. Them and Melville are the only 2 teams.
Playoff teams,
current playoff teams with open 20-year-old spots.
Kindersley does too.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
George
Odin
just
George
went to college. So.
Thank you for that. Yes. So there's 3 teams right now that just have open spots. Not saying the other 7 teams or 6 teams or whatever it is can't make a trade and acquire a 20-year-old.
Sure.
They certainly can, but
people get creative.
Exactly. Guys have to go out. 20-year-olds will have to go out in order for that to happen. Whereas Battleford's or Melville or Kindersley can just say, "Hey, we want this guy. We'll take him." So I definitely can see Battleford's adding. Depending on the market's tough, but I could see them adding at least 1 20-year-old, maybe 2, depending on what they want to accomplish and how they, like you said, how they view the room and how they would fit in the room.
It would have to be like the right fit.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not. I don't think Wiley is going nuts right now. He's like, it would have to be the right fit.
Have to be the right fit. And I've talked to GMs and coaches in the past, and there's a definite advantage to not having all 8 20-year-olds, if you're looking at your roster and saying, if we can keep this younger group together and then next year come back, there's an advantage to keeping a few of those 20 spots open because it gives your younger guys more opportunity.
Ice time.
And if they're good enough, let them have it.
Well, look, I mean, like again, I was chatting with Austin Mattis briefly because he wasn't feeling well. That's why he wasn't calling the game. But he said, yeah, like there's a lot of 05s that are very good hockey players around here.
Yeah.
And then obviously you think about like a Lincoln Fisher too on the back end.
Younger even, yeah.
And others. So, a big heart of the Battleford's team could be back next year.
Absolutely.
And they could really be a problem.
Yeah. And Battleford's, we shouldn't be surprised. They are the definition of sustained success over the last decade, them and Flin Flon. So not overly surprised that maybe they will take that strategy. Let's move into Wednesday's games here. Jackson Ruthven recorded a hat trick as the Weyburn Red Wings skated to a 7-4 barn burner at home against the Yorkton Terriers, who got 2 goals from Keenan Ingram, a couple other multi-point nights from Yorkton. But unfortunately, it wasn't enough as Weyburn took it to them with 7 goals of their own. Callum Craig faced 35 shots, only making 28 saves on the night, while Angelo Zoll 41 saves on the other end of the ice. 7-4 win for Weyburn. This, again, moves them basically into a tie with Yorkton now for that third and fourth. Battleford's is right there in fifth. So this is now becoming a little bit of that race. Earlier in the season, the parity was such that it seemed like second place to ninth place was pretty much tied. Now we're seeing that separation finally come into play a little bit, Nugsy. Flin Flon is in second. We'll talk about the standings later, actually. I'll save that conversation for later. But a big game from Weyburn, a nice win for them. They needed this one against Yorkton after, I guess they won also on Sunday against Yorkton, so they kind of have Yorkton's number right now.
Yeah, look, I mean, first of all, Jackson Ruthven, that is his team. Like, when he plays against Yorkton, that is his team. He has 2 career SJHL hat tricks.
Both against
Yorkton. So, both of them this year.
Yeah.
So, that's 6 of his goals this year against Yorkton. Weyburn, they're a very skilled team. They are also very shot hungry. They get pucks to the net as well. They are 4th in the league in shots on goal. So they're doing a lot of things right. And the last thing I'll say too is I love the human element of the game. And Angelo Zoll, hey, the football is yours to carry. The rock is yours. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm sure Ty Matanovich will get some looks. Maybe we'll see Patinat at some point. But it's Angelo Zoll's net. And, ever since they traded Daza on January the 3rd, Angelo Zoll has, if possible, elevated.
Yeah.
Like, he's been wonderful in 3 wins there since they traded Daza on January the 3rd. He's got a .949 save percentage, won all 3 of those, 41 stops in this one against a very potent Yorkton attack, as we know. That's 8 games in a row for Angelo with a plus 905 save percentage. And that's going to give you a chance to win, especially when you have the offense that Weyburn has. Yeah. Wasn't a bad road game for Yorkton overall. They had 15 pretty good scoring chances as well, and just a bit of a tougher night maybe for Callum Craig. Yeah. We know how good he can be too. So this rivalry is going to be fun. I'd love to see a playoff series.
Oh my gosh, it would be fantastic. Yeah, Great. It could work out that way. Let's move on because we have to get to a couple more games and move on. Our guest is actually ready to go already, so we want to move on. Flin Flon skated away with a 9-2 win over Nipawin, despite it was 2-1, Nugsy, for Flin Flon after the first period. So it was tight, but the Bombers put up 5 goals in the second period to blow up the scoreboard a little bit on their way to a 9-2 win. Anthony Piccinino had 5 points. Wyatt Stinton had a hat trick and an assist. Will Witter and Connor Watson got the 2 goals for the Hawks, and Gage Roberts and Nathan Clayton split the net for the Hawks, making a combined 50 saves between the 2 of them. Kenneth Marquardt, 12 saves. Only had to make 12. 14 shots.
It's a win for Team Noogstradamus.
yeah, Noogsy's fantasy
Way to go,
team
Kenny.
Says, thanks, Kent. So there you go. We don't have to talk about this one too much, I don't think, Noogsy. I mean, it was a big win for Flin Flon. They needed the 2 points. Nipawin just wasn't their night. They've had a lot of really close games lately. Just wasn't quite their night tonight. Or on Wednesday night, I guess.
Yeah, what a nice situation again for Mike Reagan to find himself with a local boy that is got huge potential and presently as well, Wyatt Stinton.
Yeah.
Again, I was talking to him about the, before the Warman showcase where there was young players from around the league. And I was like, gee, man, like there's just not a lot of them that are centers. And Wyatt's a center, and he's hard-nosed. He's a northern boy. He's a local boy. But he can put the puck in the net. He got a hat trick. So boy, oh boy, they got to be thrilled to have Wyatt in the fold for a while.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the biggest takeaway. Nathan Clayton made tons of great saves for Nipawin in net. And there's only so much a human being can do. But I talked to the birthday boy today, Clark Stork. I don't know if he's going to listen or not, but happy birthday, Clark.
Yeah.
The broadcaster for the Nipawin Hawks. He said that the Nipawin Hawks have lost 17 games in a row against the Flin Flon Bombers. So, hey, look, man, to be the Nipawin Hawks and the L'Orange Ice Wolves this year is a tough proposition because guess what? You play Flin Flon and Melfort 16 times.
Yeah.
That's pretty.
And for the most
that's
part,
tough mathematically.
For the most part, they have been putting up great fights.
Yeah,
again, it's just one of those nights where a veteran team came in and a young team wasn't quite ready.
The Avalanche can roll down fast on you at the Whitney.
It's snowballed.
Seen it many times.
Yeah, and it is what it is. I'm not too worried about the Hawks. I think they still have a lot of great future ahead of them.
That's right.
Let's move on to that second Notre Dame game, the 5-3 win against Battlefords with an empty netter at the end there. The Hound says, well, we might as well just keep on winning and put together a great effort over the North Stars Wednesday after they came off their streak ending. Battlefords came off their streak-ending win over Melfort. Hudson Kerr opened the scoring midway through the first. It was a back-and-forth affair after that until two late goals in the last 30 seconds of the second period gave Notre Dame a 4-3 lead heading into the third, and Marko Djordjevic iced it in the dying seconds with an empty netter. Spencer Borsos made 39 saves on 42 shots, while Thomas Samborski, we talked about him a minute ago, he made his SJHL debut in the loss, but was replaced in the third period by Justin Merrick, who had a very busy night on Tuesday, so I'm sure Marty Smith didn't want to put him in if he didn't have to, but at the end of the day, Nugsy, nice clean, well, I don't know if it was clean, but a nice win for Notre Dame as, again, I said it, they continue to not give up all those playoff hopes because they're still clawing away.
Yeah, it was a good character win. I think the Hounds were down to 4D for half the game because Fierson Lindorf and Taven McCorrister both fought in the same shift. 2D that our partners fought on the same shift. That's great. Funny kids. Whatever. So the Hounds were down to 4D for that long. So I'm sure Liam Hunks probably slept pretty well. Like most nights, I would imagine. Yeah. But also Spencer continues to be unbelievable. The line, and again, like we sing Marko Djordjevic's praises, and fair enough, but his line with Damien Metastasio and Tony Nolan, as long as they've been all together, whether Damien or Tony with dealing with an injury, whenever they've been separated, Marko hasn't been as Marko-ish, but when they're together, he's full-blown Marko. So, there's something about that line. I was talking to Tony about it in the elevator at the hotel, actually, just about, what makes that line tick? Like, you guys just play so well together. And he's like, yeah, I don't know. We just all play super hard. And I said, yeah, that's definitely it. The three of you guys do not take shifts off. So that was a big part of it. And, obviously, big performance from Spencer, the 3 goals at Battleford score, 5-on-3 goal, 3-on-0 goal, and a breakaway. So I guess if you're going to give up goals, probably those are the situations that it's kind of okay. But the Hounds found a way. They were badly outworked and outshot in the third period, but again, down to 4D, tired, down to 11 forwards to start the game because Bexon Fox took a puck in the face and had to have jaw surgery in Kindersley. So hopefully Bexon's okay soon. So the Hounds kind of held on for dear life by the skin of their teeth or whatever the expression is. But a win is a win. And I don't think I've ever called a Hound sweep of West Sask like that in my whole time in the SJ. So, obviously it was a happy bus ride home.
There you go. Love that. And again, Battlefords with a loss. Now they sit. Let's bring up the standings, actually. This is topic number 2 anyways. We might as well bring it up now. Here's how we sit as we enter the weekend here. This is, of course, including last night's games. So you see Melfort there, a 11-point cushion in first place. They did have, I think it was 13 coming into the week. So that cushion has shrunk. Oh, no. Panic time in Melfort. The cushion's shrinking. Flin Flon is in second there with 45 points, and then it's kind of almost a three-way tie there with Yorkton, Weyburn, and Battleford's 43, 42, 41 respectively. Kindersley's at 36, so they have a 3-point cushion over Melville, who's in seventh with 33. Humboldt's with 32, so Humboldt and Melville. Humboldt does have 3 games in hand on the Melville Millionaires right now, so we could see some movement there this weekend possibly. The La Ronge Ice Wolves are right there in ninth place with 31 points. We'll see how they approach the next day and a half here in terms of trade market stuff. Estevan with 26 points. Again, still the fewest games played in the league, but that is starting to get to a point soon that doesn't really matter anymore. They need to start picking up some wins and some points if they want a chance at the playoff dance. That's a good rhyme. If they want a chance at the playoff dance. Notre Dame, 23 points. Again, still not out of it. And then Nipawin with 19 there at the bottom. But again, some really great performances. I've loved the way Nipawin has played this season.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of just not quite enough. But that's okay. So let's look at the division standings now. As we can see in the Viterra division, you see a lot of those teams right near the top in the playoff discussion. Yorkton with 43 points, and again in their last 10 games they are 8-2. Weyburn 6-4 in their past 10 games with 42 points. Melville, they got to figure something out because they're 2-8 in their last 10 games. 33 points overall. Again, they're sitting in seventh, but they need to figure something out and get that number reversed. They need to get that 8 and that 2 flipped around.
They need to score some goals.
They need to find a way to do it and find some players. Well, yeah, just go score. It's easy. Estevan down there at the bottom, 26 points, 3-6-1 in their last 10. Melfort, of course, that one. Oh, that one hurts. 9-1 in their past 10 games. I wish they'd take that one
17
down.
17 in a row isn't bad.
Coach Riley from the Mighty Ducks. I wish they'd just take that one down. 8-0-1 for the Flin Flon Bombers in their last 10 games at 45 points. La Ronge again. If they want to make the playoffs, 3-7 in 10 games is not good enough. And Nipawin with 19 points there at the bottom. And then that's in the Sherwood division, of course. And in the Nutrien division, we see Battlefords and Kindersley up there. Again, very similar records in the past 10 games, not gaining any ground necessarily. Maybe not losing too much ground, but not gaining any. Humboldt, again, they need to reverse that record, 3-6-1 in their past 10 games. They're barely hanging on to that last playoff spot. And then Notre Dame, 4-4-0-2 in their past 10. And they're just getting 2025 started. So topic number 3, Nugsy, before we bring in our guest, I thought we'd just go team by team really quickly and just kind of say maybe what are one or two of these teams' needs if they are to make a trade in the next day or two here. What does this team need? Let's go reverse alphabetical here, or reverse standings. Let's start with Nipawin. How do you think they're going to approach this? Because I could see it going 2 ways.
Okay.
What do you think? Do you want me to say mine first?
Sure.
I just think they could sell pieces and just see how it goes and go young and go super young. They could sell some 19-year-olds and get rid of their 20s. Or they keep the group together. They only have the 2 20-year-olds anyways, right? Yeah. Vito Biondo and Henry Smith. So you keep those guys as leaders and you just keep the group together and then bring it all back next year.
Yeah.
But like I said, or they could dump off some pieces and see what they can pick up for it. What do you think?
I mean, to me, those two things are the same thing.
Yeah, fair enough.
Are they trying to find homes for Vito Biondo and Henry Smith? Absolutely, they are.
Yeah.
Hopefully those guys find them. I know Henry Smith is just coming back from an injury, so hopefully he's 100% ready to go. Mm-hmm. Great character kids. But yeah, I don't think Nipawin needs to do anything else. I don't think they will.
Yeah, fair enough. Because like I said, they have some valuable 19-year-old players that I think some teams would say, I think of 3 guys specifically. Eric Hoynes, or is he in 06? Am I getting that mixed up? I'll think about that for a sec. But Carter Anderson, the Nipawin version of Carter Anderson, Finley Radloff, and Connor Ryan, who I think is really
Hoynes
good.
Is 05, yeah.
So, there's 4 19-year-olds right there that I just named that I think any team trying to make the playoffs and make a run, those guys would be really good additions, and they're not 20, so that's easier to add a 19-year-old than a 20-year-old. It's harder to trade for a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you keep those guys in the system, you bring them all back next year, they're your leadership group next year, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'd be totally stunned if Nipawin trades anybody but Biondo or Smith.
Right, yeah, I think so too. Notre Dame, what do you think they're going to try to get or do in the next day or two?
Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame has some very valuable 20-year-olds.
Agreed.
Like, that's the honest bottom line. Brett Pilkington needs to parlay them into assets, you'd think. But I mean, he doesn't always work that way. And obviously, you can look at it just based on the result of whether or not the Hounds made a trade, and you look over the years.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, they kind of hold pat. But it's a lot of the time, and I'll be honest, it's because they're making a bunch of deals and then kids won't report.
Right.
So, he's trying, and he's working on it. Got to mention Vinny Palmerine, signed by Gatineau in the Q.
Yep.
MJHL today, so he's not coming back. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But there's certainly lots of interest in experienced Notre Dame players. I know that firsthand.
How is Estevan going to handle this next day and a half?
Yeah, it's similar. Jason Tatarnic has some valuable 20-year-olds, especially on the back end.
Good ones,
and he's got to use those guys to build for the future. Same as Notre Dame. Like Kieran Ronan, to me, is a top 5 D in this league, and maybe in other leagues. So again, got to get a haul for him. And I'm sure they got Whittingham, who's been there for a long time.
Yeah.
To some degree, does Tatarnic, kind of owe him an opportunity to go far. Obviously there's Michael Carter and there's Bo Dockstader, and kind of go to they got a veteran decor, and they're valuable guys. And could there be like a Brady Wilson move to?
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. But
Dockstader's in 05.
There's actually plenty of. Oh, you're right.
But
you're right.
still,
plenty of experience on the Estevan Bruins.
Yeah.
And so there's plenty of assets for Tatarnic to refill the cupboard.
Yeah, it just kind of seems like for Estevan, just a few things just didn't quite work out so far this year. I mean, again, there's still 26 games left for them, so. The playoffs aren't out of the question, but a lot would have to start going right pretty quick.
They put their eggs in a veteran goalie that they got, first of all, and then they trying to replace him, but that's not easy.
No.
And then they had some key injuries at key times up front, and pucks weren't flying in. So they've only scored 75 goals this year. That's the worst in the league.
Yeah, it's the lowest amount of goals for in the league. So that's tough sledding, and I'd be very curious to see in the next day or two what kind of changes, if any, Estevan makes. And if anybody's going to make a smart move, though, Jason Tatarnic's shown in the past that he's going to do the right thing and the smart thing.
Sorry for interrupting.
No,
I anticipate them to be the most the sellers that sell the most players of the league.
Interesting. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. Yeah. L'Orange, they are probably the most questionable team in terms of what they'll do, in my opinion, just because they have some very valuable pieces. I'm talking maybe the most significant valuable pieces, at least 2 of them, in my opinion, in Mason Buchert and Ryland Silzer, who could be on the move. Hard to say. But again, you keep those guys, and then you're only a point out of a playoff spot right now. So what do you think L'Orange does? What do you think their team needs are if they're to buy?
Again, I don't think Kevin Kaminsky wants to deal veteran players if he doesn't have to. He has certainly his valuable guys even beyond what you said. You think about like Cole Thomas, for example, and obviously you mentioned Silzer, Logan
Cazette.
Falk maybe, or Jacob Cazette, obviously local boy. So there's that element to him. But I mean there's lots to like, and L'Orange could win a bunch in a row and be in 5th.
That's what I mean. They're 5 points out of 5th.
I don't think Killer will be a big seller. I think maybe a piece or 2, and will want useful players for this year and beyond for them. So my expectation is maybe L'Orange does nothing, or maybe like they do one deal, but doing whatever deal it is that L'Orange is trying to do is not going to be an easy one.
Right.
So we'll see. L'Orange could do absolutely nothing, and it would not surprise me.
I agree 100%. And the thing about them is I would call them like a competitive seller. I'm going to make a new category, a competitive seller, because if they do sell, they still want to make the playoffs. So like you said, if let's just hypothetically say that a Mason Buchert, just because he's their leading scorer, but a Mason Buchert gets dealt, like you said. I didn't say you said that he's getting dealt. I'm saying, like you said, though, it would be a very complicated trade because Killer wants whoever comes back to be impactful enough that they could still push for the playoffs. And they're right there, like you said, 5 points, and they're in 5th place all of a sudden, or 6th place. So Humboldt.
Who wants to face them in the playoffs?
Exactly.
You got to deal with Graham Brown, like in a 7-game series. He could steal a series,
For sure.
Brown, so.
Yeah, and they have enough guys that it wouldn't be fun. Humboldt, they were another questionable one. What are you thinking about Humboldt?
Well, they've already made the biggest trade, obviously, of the year so far.
Yeah.
Bringing in Daz and Mitchell, a top 4 or 5 goalie in the league for sure.
Yeah.
I think they're looking for scoring too, consistent scoring. They've got a lot of guys that are two-way guys. So just a pure offensive guy. They had a pure offensive guy. It clearly didn't work out. His name was Gabriel Filion. Obviously, Jacob Streets, he's very happy in Humboldt. He does not want to go anywhere, is what I understand, to sound like, Elliot Friedman for a second. My understanding is that Jacob Streets, he loves it in Humboldt. He loves Braden Klamosko, so he's not going anywhere. They would love a centerman to play with him, that they would find maybe some veteran consistency as good as Kai Benosh has been. So we'll see. They got lots of reasons to make them a tough team to play against. They just need that kind of game breaker to go with to run with Streetsy. But I think their decor is set, the goaltending is set. Broncos look good. If they did nothing, they'd still be a big pain in the derriere in the playoffs. So they'll be fine.
Melville. Yeah. This is an interesting one. Again, a lot of adversity this season for their roster, and we're trying to figure out who's going to be around. And I think that's the biggest question mark for Millionaires fans. It's like, okay, what team are we going to have after the trade deadline? That's a big question. It's hard to say.
Whenever there's a losing streak anywhere in this league, rumors swirl and people assume things. I don't just mean Melville. Could be Estevan, could be Weyburn, could be York, could be anywhere in the league. Yeah. And there's a losing streak and people freak out. Doug Johnson's a great coach. He can coach defensive hockey and make them hard to play against, so they can win all sorts of games in a row. Be very interesting if there's a slight adjustment of the roster balance from being very defensive heavy and totally defensively responsible to just a touch more offensive flair. Obviously, we've mentioned it 1,000 times. They lost who. Yeah. We're going to leave it there. I think they need, again, a little bit more dynamism offensively, because they play hard. They get the pucks deep. They make their D-turn. They win a board battle to get it to the point, get bodies in front, and it's a little bit predictable. And Melville needs just a little bit of creativity. Where do you find that? I don't know. Yeah. But that's probably what Melville's looking for. But they have veteran, hard-nosed, terrific assets that are very, very good, especially on the back end, that they can get something for. So
they absolutely have one of the best blue lines in the league still. They still play a very good, solid game overall.
Fun to play
but when you lose your top 2 scorers, reasons out of your control, more or less, 100%. I mean, it's kind of tough to just all of a sudden lose 30 goals off your roster out of nowhere. So I know that they're dealing with that, and we'll see what Doug Johnson does. Let's keep moving along here as we move to, I lost my standings page, the Kindersley Clippers. This is an interesting one. Again, they could stay completely the same, but I think if they make the right move or two, they could really, I could see them popping off. They had a hot start to the year. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, under Clayton Jardine, they're always aggressive. Yeah. And obviously, Andy's got Gibby in there as well, too. So Ryan Gibson, their assistant GM, they're terrific hockey guys. Tyler Traptow. Go down the list. They do a great job.
I got to meet a lot of them at the Warman Showcase for the first time. Awesome dudes.
Unbelievable people. Yeah. So they're gonna be buyers if they do anything. You're right. They could do nothing. Do they want, again, a little bit more experience in the goal creation category? I would say yes, because, again, their veterans are solid. And, yes, Dawson Carroll has been banging in goals this year. Doesn't care at all if they're pretty. But his speed and his strength and his instincts have really shown up this year. But they would like another, I'm sure, experienced guy who can score goals. Again, how do you find that? I don't know. Do they keep rolling with Brett O'Halloran in net? Of course, they will keep giving him minutes. But would it's been a tough year for Cody Jamin.
Health status of Cody Jamin, I think, is a big X factor in this whole discussion.
So do they look goaltending too? Obviously, a veteran scorer just like Melville. I think Kindersley's certainly ahead of Melville in the way that they're playing right now. I love the way they play. They bought in. They're hard to play against. Could use some experience up front.
Second most penalized team in the league. Just thought that was an interesting note.
They straddle that line.
Battlefords. What do we think about them? I mean, we talked about them kind of at length earlier. But what do you think about Battleford? What are they?
I just said like controlled buyers.
Yeah, controlled buyers. Yeah,
like if they do nothing, they're fine. If they can get everybody back, then they could really go on a run, and it wouldn't surprise me, especially with Justin Merrick in net. When you really are in the playoffs and you don't need to have different goalies playing, you just give him the, you're Justin, you're starting, and that's it.
Yeah.
Then I think Battlefords will be fine if they can get Jordan Grill back, especially if they need to replace Jordan Grill. How do you do that?
Yeah.
That is tough. But I mean, I don't see them doing anything at all unless it's a perfect thing that falls in their lap.
Yeah. Weyburn's been busy already, so I don't even know if we really have to talk too much about Weyburn because I can't see them doing too much. I mean, they made a blockbuster today with the Notre Dame Hounds. They got a second-round pick for a PDF.
2010 pick.
Blockbuster. Yeah. They win the deadline.
Hey,
but
Cody's always active.
Yeah.
Weyburn, they make moves and it's paid off. Like they're having a wonderful year.
The hardest working member of the Weyburn Red Wings this next couple days will be Cody Mape's phone charger. He has multiple portable phone chargers just to make sure his phone doesn't die.
A burner phone. Look, Weyburn has an open 20 spot. Cody is known again for not leaving a stone unturned. That means he's up till 4 a.m. and whatever he's mining, whatever it is, the MJ, the AJ, the OJ, whatever. Cody will try to find another 20-year-old because they have another 20-year-old spot now with Daza gone. So I think, nothing would surprise me in terms of whether it's a forward or a D for Weyburn.
To my knowledge, they have 8 20-year-olds. Daza was the 9th, wasn't he? Or is there some issues there?
There's another situation there that I can't talk about.
Sure.
But my understanding is that it's not earth shattering. But I don't think I'm at liberty.
That's fair. We don't have to talk about it.
But I believe that Weyburn has a 20 spot that they could use if they need it.
Got it. Let's move on to again. I lose my spot because I go at other things. Yorkton. Yeah. I mean, they could go a few ways. Yeah. Maybe a big defenseman might be a big addition for them.
First veteran defenseman.
Yeah.
When we were making our trade, I liked the Biondo to Yorkton.
Yeah, that feels right.
Situation, and there's a lot of forward mouths to feed in Yorkton, time-wise, power play-wise.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. So could they parlay an asset or two from their very rich, skilled forward spot? Nobody in the league has the depth. It doesn't matter about Melfort, Flin Flon of skilled forwards that Yorkton has.
Yeah.
So got to use some of those and turn it into a real shutdown D-man is good. And don't tell me there's no bigger Tommy Reese fan. I'm going to sound like Donald Trump there. Nobody likes Tommy Reese more than me. Nobody. Yeah. But he's 6.
Yeah.
And that's not easy for playing huge minutes and huge role every single night as a young guy. So they'd love to find somebody else to do that role.
Flin Flon, what do we think? Another big defenseman, maybe, for them?
Yeah, I mean, Mike, again, just like Cody, leaves no stone unturned.
Yeah.
People joke about Cody trading and whatever, but Mike, look, he's lost 3 finals in a row. He's not going to leave a stone unturned. He's not going to make a lot of, I'll bring in a lot of guys to try to upset the apple cart. I don't think. Like, he's not going to change his room.
As much as last year.
He likes the, I don't know if anybody will do that anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
But he's going to be very measured, but he's going to maybe make 1 or 2 more ads, and obviously his 20-year-old situation is tight as well. But for the right move, Mike will do whatever it takes to bring a championship to Flin Flon.
Yeah,
he's shown that time again. So again, I wouldn't be surprised. Again, Weyburn and Flin Flon are the same to me.
Yeah,
don't upset your room. But if there's one huge impact move to make, then they will make it.
And Melfort. To me,
don't do anything.
Yeah,
leave it, Trevor.
Not much there.
Leave it.
At the most, maybe
don't do anything.
A middle 6 forward or something like that, because their goalie's solid, their defense is fine.
I think
if you can find a little extra scoring,
it would be a mistake.
Don't do it. If you can find a little extra scoring, don't do it.
They are ready to win the SJHL championship right now. I'm not saying they are going to, and that was one of the questions that people threw at us on Twitter, but I'm saying they are ready with their roster as constructed to win the championship.
And that's a perfect segue, Nugsy. Because one thing they also don't need to replace is their broadcaster, because we got him with us right now. Ben Tompkins is going to join us now. Ben, sorry to keep you waiting, but when we get talking about stuff, Ben, it's hard to get us off the track.
Especially me.
Thanks for joining us today. As I mentioned earlier in the show, yes, you're the voice of the Melfort Mustangs, but you're also the backup voice for the Battleford's North Stars. Can you tell us what happened there?
Oh. Can't hear you, Ben.
Is that us or?
Can't hear it.
Oh, there we go.
You hear me now?
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah.
I think that I'm going to blame the guys in the
There
back
we go.
for that one.
There you go. I was waiting all this time and you couldn't figure out the audio. What the heck? Apparently I'm the backup guy for the Battleford North Stars. Found that out yesterday morning. Got a call as I was about to head into work, and they're like, "Our guy's sick. Well, you want to drive to Battleford's?" I'm like, "Sure, I guess so." So yeah, had to call 2 North Stars games in a row, one for the Mustangs, one for Battleford's, and apparently I'm not very good in that rank because I'm 0 for 2 in the last few days.
Yeah, rough start for your Battleford's North Star career. Ben, let's talk about the team that you normally call the Melfort Mustangs, obviously losing the streak. The streak is over, 17 wins. Can you just talk about the last couple of months in Melfort and how magical that run was?
Yeah, I mean, it was great. You tie the modern record. I don't think you can be disappointed in winning 17 in a row. But talking to Trevor Blevins just before we started our 2025 games, it wasn't as dominant as it seemed. There was a lot of 1-goal wins, so I think the boys just found how to win close, and if they were in a position to win, they weren't going to accept a loss. So it was great, and now we just gotta kind of get back to work this weekend.
Christian Coombs was recently named the SJHL First Star of the Month for December. 7 wins, huge numbers for the goaltender there. He has definitely answered the bell after the James Venn exodus after last year. Can you just talk about the confidence that Christian Coombs has right now?
As crazy as it is to say, because he didn't play much last year, it's not a surprise to any of his teammates, the coaches. He's the hardest work on you. You know, if you gave him 6 hours of ice time a day, he would take it.
Yeah,
he really would. He likes being out there. The boys like to challenge him, and yeah, I think just the ability to know you get a chance to play every day is huge for him. And he's taking the reins. He doesn't want to give it away, and he's playing fantastic for sure.
We just talked. I don't know if you were here listening to us. I said, Trevor Blevins, if you're listening, don't do anything at the trade deadline. Do you agree or no? Yes,
I mean, it's kind of one of those things where if something too good to be true comes up, you have to make a move. But yeah, he's not one to want to make a move just because. Want to make the move to upset the room. If he likes the guys he has, if they're good both on and off the ice, he's not going to force anything. So yeah, maybe you grab a little extra depth at forward, but I guess maybe it's not needed. So it's obviously up to him. It's not up to me, but I think he'll accept calls. He just won't be actively searching. I don't think we're going to be picking up a Clay Sleeva like we did last year. So
you don't wait. So like what you're saying is that every other broadcaster in the league doesn't think that they're the assistant GM of the team that they work for, like me, because I think that all the time, and I just give Brett my opinion whether he likes it or not. Ben, I got to ask you too. Obviously, 17-game streak, that's magical. But what went into the upset perhaps there on the weekend for Battleford's finding a way to finally slay the dragon, and I kind of mean a pun because Seth Dragon, big piece of it.
Yeah, he had 2 goals. Honestly, they were the more desperate team. I think they realized what was at stake, and I think Melfort knew, but it wasn't something we really wanted to talk about. It was just take one game at a time. But yeah, they came in, they forechecked well. They were probably a little tougher than us on the night. They played a full 50-55, close to 60, talking to Martin Smith the day after. And they wanted it more, in all honesty. I mean, it's hard to win, obviously, 18 games in a row. You take it one game at a time, but Battleford's, it felt like a playoff game for them. And maybe we just couldn't quite figure out. We kept it close, but ultimately they wanted it in the end, and Merrick made 40 stops, so he was obviously a big part of it as well.
Yeah, for sure. I guess a little miscommunication. I thought I was saying you do want a question.
Oh.
Clark and I miscommunicated. It's all good.
You pointed. I thought you were like me. I'm like, oh, yeah, go for it.
Yeah. You mentioned it, like, Melfort is undefeated all year still in 1-goal games. Obviously, there were some tight ones at the end of 2024. Obviously, I think with a couple with Notre Dame, and there was Nipawin in there and a few others. But what about this Melfort team makes them so good at, whatever the game model looks like? They're able to pull it out, whether they're down late or up late or whatever, 1-goal games, they seem to thrive.
I think the old saying, addicted to winning is great, but it's better to find guys that hate to lose more than they like to win. And I think that's what our group is full of. It's not, let's win another one. We just celebrate the wins. It's they hate to lose. They, know from last year that, it's a lot more fun to win than it is to lose. And I think it's just when it comes down to it, Blevins and Sugar, they find a way to get the most out of the boys when the game's close. And, if you work that hard for most of the game and you can take it, why not make it not a wasted effort? And, when you hate to lose, it makes it hard for your team to lose when everyone's buying in.
So when I look at the team stats, if Christian Coombs didn't win first star of the month for December, Riley Kotai probably would have been right there in terms of the discussion, at least. He's skyrocketed up to the top of the league stats. And Ashton Hutchinson's been fantastic. But can you talk about the month that Riley Kotai had? Because it seemed like every night he was putting up multi-point nights. He was, huge point streak, stuff like that. How big has Riley Kotai been for this Mustangs team this year?
I think the nice thing is he controls the second line. It's not a guy, it's weird to have the leading scorer not on your top line, but he's a guy that, plays all 200 feet, is great on the face-off dot, works hard in the corners, loves the cycle game. And, he was fantastic. I think he had like 15 points in 4 games to start the month. And the point total is slowed down a bit, but his work ethic hasn't. That line hasn't been able to maybe find them back in the net as much. But, he's fantastic. When you can have a guy who's, not only leading the league in scoring, but does everything you want all 200 feet of the ice, and you can put him on your second line somehow. It really, gives your team 2 top lines to put out there where, the coach doesn't really know what line he's going to put his top defense. You have a Kotai, managing the second line and, already has 40-plus points.
For sure. And then just the last question for me, Ben, really appreciate your time. As always, it looks like you're going to drive somewhere. Hopefully you're not driving right now. But,
No, not driving right now.
Pardon?
I said not driving right now. I was 10 minutes short of Melfort. I was just on my way back from Battleford, and maybe I could have made a I didn't realize I was coming on a little later, but that's okay.
Yeah, I'm very gratified from a human perspective to see Zach Summers staying healthy. And to me, this is the best Zach Summers we've ever seen, the way he's playing. Would you, again, agree or disagree that this is the best Zach Summers we've ever seen?
I think it's the best Zach Summers we've ever seen because it's the most we've seen of him in a season. This is his fourth year with the team. He's pretty much always a point and a half per game player. And when he's healthy, he's again a guy that you can put penalty kill, power play. He's got the skills. He looks like a smaller guy, but he's been throwing a lot of checks this year. He's toughened up even more. It's really fantastic just to see him out on the ice. Obviously, the hometown guy, you want the best for him. But I think he was maybe a little disappointed to miss kind of the second half of the playoff run in the Centennial Cup last year. So being that it's his 20-year-old year, he just wants to play his hardest when he's out on the ice because you're not always going to be healthy. But he looks fantastic, and it is the best he's ever seen. It's most consistent because he's hardly missed time, and it really shows when he's in lineup what this team can do. Yeah,
because when you're healthy, like you're playing, you're feeling the puck, you're consistent, and also you're healthy, you're in the gym. And he's bigger than I've ever seen him, and he's hitting people, as you said, way more than I've ever seen him. That was what Maine wanted, I think, was that physical element from him, and we've really seen that. So big-time kudos to Zach for rounding his game out that way.
So LaRange on Friday and Yorkton on Saturday. Ben, what's the message in the room? What's the strategy for the weekend? Because by Friday night's game, we'll know the final roster for this team. The deadline is just before the game starts, so we'll know the final roster. So what do you think the message is going into the weekend?
Honestly, probably the same thing that assistant coach Ty Sugar told me after I lost to Battlefords is we have to get desperate again. It's reset. I know it sounds weird. You have to get desperate when you have a 11-point lead on second place. You're 17-1 in your last 18 games, but desperation wins you games. It's playoff time now, and after a loss, it was, it's weird to almost want a loss, but when the win streak gets so long, sometimes you worry. Do you just kind of start coasting? I think it was a lesson for these boys. They're regrouping, and they don't want to play like the top team. They want to play like a team that's hungry for points, wants to win in the rest of the games, and make sure they're always in it and competing to the best of their abilities.
There we go. Thank you, Ben, for your time today. We'll let you get back to work, and we'll chat with you again soon down the road.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
There we go. Ben Tompkins, of course, voice of the Melfort Mustangs, backup voice of the Battlefords North Stars. And, good to see him. Great report there. Thank you, Ben. Final notes. We're going to look ahead to the schedule. Was there anything else we wanted to touch on before?
I just wanted to say, when I saw him at the Access Communication Center yesterday, I was like, did you sleep here? Like, what's going on? And and turns out Austin's pretty sick. So
yeah, there you go. Hopefully Austin gets better as well. Shout out to Austin Mattis. Let's look ahead at Friday's schedule. There's 3 days of games this weekend: Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So on Friday, it's a lighter schedule because it is the trade deadline. So I'm guessing there was something along the lines where teams didn't want to necessarily play that day. Estevan will be playing Melville, though. That's actually, low-key a pretty important game for both teams. But, if Estevan has hopes of getting to that playoff race, they got to start Friday. And again, we just mentioned it. Melfort's playing Larange, or hosting Larange, I should say. On Saturday, as we move into the weekend, Flin Flon is visiting the Humboldt Broncos. Melville will be hosting the Battlefords North Stars. Weyburn hosts the Notre Dame Hounds. I might actually see if I can sneak out to that game if I could. Kindersley against the Nipawin Hawks. They host the Nipawin Hawks, I should say. And then Melfort does face Yorkton in what is, at the moment, 2 of the top 3 teams in the league. That could change by Saturday. And then on Sunday, a couple more games on Sunday, 3, I should say. Yorkton hosts the Battlefords North Stars. Humboldt hosts the Flin Flon Bombers in a big one. And then Kindersley hosts Nipawin. So a busy weekend. There'll be, 10 games overall. Newsy, is there anything specific you're looking forward to?
Well,
outside of just seeing how the trade deadline shakes down.
Yeah, absolutely. Trade deadline, and then after the trade deadline, we should have the SJMJ Showcase rosters, pretty soon, I understand. So that'll be cool as you take a look at the schedule for the showcase there. Pretty typical to the way the showcase has been. They'll also practice on the 27th. So, the kids will be up there, and then the games will be back on the 31st. So quick turnaround for some people, but it should be a lot of fun, and we will be talking about the showcase a bunch the rest of the month here. But obviously it's all about trade deadline. I know, again, some people have reached out and I've seen on in social media and message boards, what's going on? Nothing's happening. It's dead quiet. Look, lots of conversations are going on. Obviously I was around Brett on the road trip, and his phone was constantly attached to it. I know it's the same for every GM in the league. So they're working on it, and I expect there will be some movement. I'm not going to say whether it's going to be an avalanche or not, but there will be things for us to talk about at the Capital Automotive Group show on Monday. You can tee that up if you want.
So just a reminder, on Monday, we won't be in the studio. We will be at Capital Auto Mall, at a Capital Auto Mall location. In the north end of Regina. So we'll be on location because they are the trade sponsor of any trades that happen. They are the sponsor. So we'll be there. We'll be breaking down what did or didn't happen over the deadline's window. And we'll be kind of, setting up the second half of the season. There will be no guest. It's just going to be us.
You know what the guest is going to be? The guest is going to be our draft.
Yes, the fantasy draft update.
Continues.
The updated draft. We got to finish up our draft. Some guys will get replaced. Some guys will get added to the teams. So that is a big part of what Monday's show is going to be. I think I said no guests. I think there's going to be one sponsor guest, I believe, from Capital that'll join us, I think, as of right now on the show. So there won't be a league representative guest. It'll just be myself, Nugsy, and Rory breaking down what happened, how the teams look going forward, and entering the official, I call it the official second half of the season, even though we're already in the second half of the season. I call it after the deadline is the official one.
Sure.
One thing to remember about the deadline is the WHL or CHL trade deadline is actually right about now as we're recording this. That will be shutting down. So there will be the odd player that finds his way back to junior A hockey, I always say. So I always look at it, and this year it's different than most years. Usually it's the same day. Usually the WHL deadline is like the afternoon of the CJHL deadline, which is then in the evening of that day. The WHL and CHL moved theirs to a day before to avoid the weekend and avoid a busy Friday night of hockey games. So what that's going to do is actually open up an extra almost 24 hours for CJHL coaches to kind of react to whatever happens from the, I call it the trickle down, I guess, from junior A or from major junior to junior A. There aren't usually a ton of players that lose a spot or something and come down, but there's always a couple. So that does kind of affect certain teams' plans. So I would say if you're worried that nothing's happened yet, just hang on like a couple hours. If you're listening to this, it's probably going to start happening as you're listening to this, especially because this is like an hour into our show. So if you're listening to this part of the show, it's probably starting. So expect some things maybe tonight, which is Thursday as of recording, and then into tomorrow. We have all day tomorrow as well for teams to kind of put their finalizing pieces onto trades, and things will start happening. So stay tuned. I don't know a ton. I'm not the insider. Nugsy has more connections than me, but from what I've heard, there is one, possibly two, multiple anyways, significant trades possibly in the works. So stay tuned. If they happen, you'll know about it as soon as we know about it because we'll tell you on social media. Stay tuned. If they don't happen, something fell through because we'll see. We'll see, though. Anything else before we go?
We had some social media questions we can get to
quickly.
quickly.
Yeah, of course.
One is you asked me who my favorite behind-the-scenes IKS media person is, and definitely it is all of them.
All of them.
And you can say that's cheating, but I'm not going to move off of it because I'm extremely grateful for all
Bryce,
of them.
if you're back there and you got the camera set up, I don't know if you're ready for this because we're kind of throwing it at you here, but I asked Nugsy, who his favorite was, and he took the out. He just said all of them. I feel like that's cheating. How do you feel about this, Bryce?
I'm for it.
You're for it?
Yeah.
Okay. Just keep it
Team
neutral.
guy.
Keep it neutral. Switzerland over here.
Blake Milton said, when the playoffs start, can anyone touch Melfort?
Yes, I saw that question. My answer would be, if you asked this question last year about Flin Flon, look what happened.
Yeah.
So my answer is yes. In this league, anything can happen. Come playoff time, you don't know what injuries are going to happen. So I would say absolutely somebody can touch Melfort. And honestly, the way the league has been this year, it could be anybody.
Yeah.
Just the way the league has been, the parity, the ups and downs, the inconsistencies with some teams that we expected maybe to be a little bit better.
Yeah.
Who knows? Like right now, as of now, it's a horse race in round number 1. It's Melfort versus Humboldt in the rematch of last year's semifinal. And as of right now, I mean,
start printing tickets.
Exactly.
They're gonna need it.
But the way I look at it, like if it ends that way, I mean, I expected Humboldt to be a top 5 team this year. They did lose a lot, but they're a solid team. They could come up with 4 good games.
Yeah.
Absolutely, they could.
Absolutely.
So to answer Blake's question, for me at least, yes. And it might be more than one team could take them down.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Trevor Blevins, if he sat here,
100%.
would also say the same thing. He's not afraid of anybody. They shouldn't be. They should feel good about beating anybody. But feeling good is not the same as not being touched.
Yeah. Well, I thought Flin Flon was untouchable last year, and they lost. So
I think a lot of people did.
Yeah.
And Matt Decker, our buddy, who's the voice of the Fort McMurray Oil Barons and the AJ. How busy are you expecting deadline day to be? Do you feel the dub deadline being today will affect some teams approach it? We kind of talked about the WHL one.
Yeah, I kind of just touched on that. So I would say yes, it does affect it for sure. I think so.
Sort of. Not as much. Not as much now.
It gives teams in Junior A more of a chance to kind of just survey the land.
Yeah.
And just see, okay,
Because
what do we
different
think?
days.
Yeah, different days. So some teams might not make a panic move, for example. Maybe actually a move might not get made because teams will have more time to think about it. Whereas in previous years, you have 3 or 4 hours in between the major junior and the junior A deadlines. Mm-hmm. It's usually about 3 or 4 hours, I think. So teams might say, "Oh, I got no time. I got it. Okay, make the trade." Whereas now they have a day and be like, "Yeah, you know what? Mm-hmm. Let's hold off." So you might actually see. You won't hear about it, but you might actually see a trade not happen because they have more time to think about it than some sort of panic reaction. So think about it in that regard. But yeah, I don't know, Nugsy. I think the phones are going to be busy because I'm going to say we have 10 teams in our league that think they're playoff bound or want to be playoff teams still. Even I'm including Estevan in that conversation.
Sure.
Because I know Jason Tatarnik, I know the organization. I know they're not going to want to give up on the season. So I could see 10 of our 12 teams in this league who think they want to be buyers or want to make a move to push for the playoffs. So it's going to be very hard for those 10 teams to make trades with each other.
Yeah.
So in one sense, I think the phones will be very busy. I could also see none of those phone calls actually amounting to much at the end of it.
Yeah,
they might get down the road on a trade talk. I just don't know if they'll all get completed. You know what I mean?
You can say this is a buyout answer if you want, or whatever the term is, cop out answer. But I see it as not record breaking. I see it as not dead silence. Mm-hmm. It'll be a reasonable amount of trades.
Yeah,
and we'll have stuff to talk about at the show, but it won't be like we're bathing in trades. Like I think there'll be some good ones, some impactful ones.
I think that's going to be what we talk about on Monday. I think there's going to be a smaller amount of trades overall, but there'll be big trades. Like there'll be significant trades.
Small amount, but important.
Important, yeah. Like. Maybe not Clay Sleva trade from last year level, but close. That's the kind of thing we're talking about here.
Yeah,
if they go down.
At the time, again, I think we said pretty good trade, but again, even the gravity of that trade was bigger than we even anticipated.
Yeah.
So you never know.
Yeah.
What that'll turn into, but
I think
you put it succinctly. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see a ton of depth player for PDF trades going down. I don't see a ton of those ones. Maybe a couple.
Yeah.
But I see more of a big player for some good young guys kind of trades. That's a couple of those, and then maybe the odd, depth guy for a PDF type move.
See.
But anyways, Nugsy, I think that's going to do it for us here today. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media channels. Of course, get your Flow Hockey subscription, but Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and of course, if you're watching here on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on Spotify or any of your favorite podcast platforms, make sure you follow us for the latest. And thanks again to all of our sponsors, of course. Borgo, Cantera Seeds, Capital Auto Mall, Sask Lotteries, Chevrolet, Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association, Nutrien, Tourism Saskatchewan, Sask Energy, UPL, SGEU, Great Western, SGI, and RBC. Thanks a lot to Nugsy for joining me today. I know you had a late night last night. That caffeine is doing great work.
Thanks.
Of keeping you awake, but I'll let you get going back to your busy life and maybe some rest before a weekend. I know you got some stuff going on too this weekend in terms of games. The guys in the back, Bryce and Rolf, I believe, are on the showcase. There they are, Bryce and Rolf, and everybody else involved in making this show go. Everyone at IKS, and it's a busy couple of days. So stay tuned to all of our social media platforms. We'll have all the trades as they come down. So make sure you follow Nugsy, myself, the SJHL accounts, and we'll keep you updated. And then this weekend, 10 big games, and the second half starts tomorrow night. So it's an exciting time in the SJHL. So get out to the rinks, enjoy the hockey, and we will see you again on Monday for SJHL Weekly, everyone. Bye for now.